In Europe, we don't have the mega huge barbecues. They exist. It seems to have been stuck in the same gender roles for years. It's all about meat in the United States. So, 'tis the season. It's time to get into barbecue season. And if you're like me, you do love a good barbecue. It just makes my day feel sunny and bright. And also, yum, 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 barbecue. But have you ever wondered what the difference between American barbecue and barbecue in Europe is? I sure have, and I tried out American barbecue a couple of times when I was over in the States. Love the sausage, love the turkey, don't, love the brisket, and love the, what is it, sweet potato, and love the crisps, even though I would normally have crisps at my dinner.
Try something new.
Try something new. And as a person from Europe, I've definitely had my fair share of barbecues. I've had barbecues in the UK, I've had barbecues in Ireland, I've had barbecues in Spain, Italy, France. This is all entirely my subjective opinion, because I'm a human and these are just my thoughts. Oh, here I thought everything that you said was Bible and you spoke on behalf of all Europeans/Americans globally, worldwide. Thought you had that kind of power. First up, referring to a barbecue can be a little confusing according to the Americans. In the USA, barbecuing may refer to a slow cook process, a process that takes a really long time. This process is often called smoking.
Smoking!
Typically, a low heat is used, and sometimes you guys use wood chips or even logs or sometimes charcoal. In Europe, we typically do grilling. That's a faster process, and mostly I've only seen charcoal used. I'm not saying it doesn't exist to have the other things, but I have never seen it. In the USA, grilling is a serious business. Don't get me wrong, in Europe, men get competitive about the barbecue too, but not on the same level as the Americans. It's a whole other level. Oh, and before you say I'm sexist, let me point out barbecue is the one place in the world that time has seemed to forget. It seems to have been stuck in the same gender roles for years. Men tend to get competitive and do the grilling, and women tend to do the sides. I don't know why that is, it just is. I'm not saying women can't do barbecues, of course we can, just typically men seem to enjoy doing barbecues more than women. Speaking of sides, sides in the USA versus Europe can be very different. In the USA, sides often include things like coleslaw, potato salad, even beans. Why did I say beans like that? I don't know. Sometimes I get in this weird mode and who am I? It sounded really sarcastic. Beans. In Europe, salads, grilled vegetables, bread, and an abundance of different types of potato feature. A lot of times, French fries, or chips, as we call them. Baked potato is also a big thing in the UK and Ireland with a barbecue. Now ask yourself, how much would you spend on a barbecue itself, the actual apparatus of a barbecue? Depending on your answer, it will flag whether you are more likely to be an American or a European. As I said, barbecues are a serious business in the USA. Typically in Europe, we'd spend up to, I can imagine somebody spending up to €500 on a barbecue. We pretty much all have the same barbecue. It usually looks like this. I got my dad a barbecue for his birthday a couple of years ago, and I think the patrons were a little let down. It was just this bog standard looking barbecue. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Patreon. I appreciate you guys a whole lot. If you want to join my patrons and get more behind the scenes content, do check out patreon.com/Diane Jennings or check out channel membership. I just had a visit from Paul. There's loads of behind the scenes, including his reunion with Chewy, which is so cute. Everybody I know has this one type of barbecue. Typically, you plug it into a gas cylinder. Also, a lot of times people just go with the charcoal. That works too. Again, not saying in Europe we don't have the mega huge barbecues. They exist, but I've only really ever seen them in like really fancy real estate where people are like, ooh, look at this amazing barbecue we have on site. The generic barbecue just seems to suffice for most. In the States, you guys can spend thousands on your grills, which blows my mind, but you also have so many different types. But go hard or go home. That's usually how the Americans do it. They go big with their barbecues. Another huge difference between American and European barbecues in general is the flavor. Generally, Americans like a smoky barbecue flavor. I guess the clue is in the name. Folks in the UK and Ireland kind of share this one. We like the distinct, smoky, sweet, savory flavorings of a barbecue. Sweet, tangy, smoky. However, in other parts, for example in continental Europe, this flavor is just very different. They like a lot more seasoning. Thyme, rosemary, paprika, these are often flavors used in European barbecues on the continent. And while the Americans generally like their product dipping in sweet and savory sauce, continental Europeans like to marinade. They prefer a more acidic and herbaceous flavoring. And while I'm talking about sauce, yes, the Americans like to drown their meats in sauces. Typically in the States, you guys like to pour your sauce onto the meat. However, there is another method I understand used to cook. I've never actually cooked barbecue in the United States. So do feel free to friendlily correct me in the comments, but I believe you like to use some method called dry rubs that seasons the meat before you cook it. Sounds interesting. Also, what is cooked varies greatly between the two continents. In the USA, it's all about the meat, the quantity of meat, big cuts of meat. Pulled pork is a nice thing that we have exported in recent years from you guys. But you like thick cuts of briskets and ribs. Meat. I feel like it caters to the caveman in every man cooking a barbecue. We also like meat in Europe. I've heard that Germans love a bit of sausage.
I like the double her entendre.
Those in the UK and Ireland also love sausage and burgers. Sometimes even ribs. However, in Spain, Italy and Portugal, you are very likely to see lamb, chicken and even steak. But a big part of European barbecue is fish and vegetables. There is a huge focus on the vegetables in a lot of parts of Europe. Bell peppers, onions and mushrooms are just as big of a deal as the meats. Kebabs seem to be something that people take a lot of enjoyment in making. I understand these also feature in the USA, but the focus remains on the meat. Meat, meat, meat. In the USA, it's all about meat. That's me miming eating a big meat. Then comes the question of the social setting. In the United States, barbecues tend to be a family and friends affair, a lot of times in your backyard. And while this is also for sure a thing that happens in Europe, there's also a lot more social settings that it can appear in Europe. There are a lot of public barbecues, parks, even beaches. A lot of times in Spain, I see people going down to the beach with their cuts of meat and their vegetables, and they all go down there, they throw on some music and have a big fiesta with the barbecue. Anyone can join in, but you probably ask before you eat somebody else's food. Next up comes the beverages. Beverages, of course, are highly subjective. I myself enjoy a good Diet Coke, which is not a typical classic thing you would have at a barbecue. But overwhelmingly, beer is the thing, both in the USA and in Europe. People just love a beer with a barbecue. However, as I understand it, you guys also like sweet tea. In Europe, you'll commonly also find cider and wine served with a barbecue. The next key difference is the serving style. In the USA, meat is often served on a platter, sliced, and people go up and they eat it barbecue style. No. In the USA, barbecued meat is often served on a platter, sliced, and you go up and you eat it buffet style. You go up and take your portion and put it on your plate yourself. In Europe, you're more likely to get individual portions served up to you. Or traditionally, I've seen among my friends and family, you will queue up with your plate and the person who made the barbecue will put your portion on your plate. You can get whatever you want, the side dishes, the sauce, but it's doled out like that by the person who prepared the barbecue. Or people, because it can be a group affair. And finally, this is very much subjective and dependent on where you are in Europe, but it is not uncommon to find an Irish dad standing outside under an umbrella trying to prepare a barbecue, because Irish summer is just, it's impossible to predict. It's as likely to start being sunny and then end up being rainy. I remember one time when I was a kid, my dad cooked our barbecue in the snow because we were all just so desperate to have a barbecue, and it was July and the sun just was not coming. So that's a very Irish one, but you know, I'm from Ireland and I'm Irish. Shout out today to a couple of very special people. First up, we have a shout out from the always kind Rickey Carey, who wants to shout out me, Chewy, the Patreons and supporters of the channel that like, comment and subscribe, who make it possible for me to make videos and for Chewy to get treats. Thank you so much, Rickey. Next up, we have a lovely shout out from Brian Ediger. Brian would like to shout out all nonprofits and those who work in them. Brian believes it shows the heart and character of God, even for those who are non-religious, to help those in need without wanting anything in return. So he says, thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. Let me know below in the comments what you're most likely to eat at a barbecue.